On the 21st of September 1583, Dee Kelley, Lasky and the wives and children went to Gravesend and boarded ships for the continent. Dee's house and library in Mortlake were entrusted to Dee's brother-in-law, Nicholas Fromenz. Dee hinted that he was on a private mission on behalf of the Queen. Maybe himself and Kelley were intelligencers, using their positions in Lasky's entourage to gather sensitive foreign information. Throughout the journey to Poland, Dee and Kelley continued to make their scrying actions. The angels continued to communicate Kabbalistic tables in the Adamic language at an almost untranscribable rate. By Christmas, the party were in Poland. In February 1584, they had finally reached their destination of Krakow. Kelley was unsettled and wanted to return to England. He produced evidence that some of the informations communicated to him from the spirits he had actually copied from books in Dee's library. Kelley was careful to claim that this was spiritual mischief, not actual fraud. The Polish Prince Lasky fell out of favour with the King of Poland, and Dee was worried that association with Lasky might put his family in danger. Through Kelley, the spirits were continually telling Dee that he should go to meet the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph in Prague. On August the 1st of 1584, Dee and Kelley parted company with Lasky, left Poland and made their way to Prague. The Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph had dominion over Austria, Germany, Hungary and Bohemia. He was not interested in the practicalities of running an empire. He preferred cerebral pursuits such as science, art, spiritualism, hermeticism and alchemy. Prague was an arcane centre. Dee and Kelley found lodgings in the house of Rudolph's physician, a gentleman called Thaddeus Hajek, who was also one of Europe's foremost astronomers. Dee had corresponded with Hajek for over 10 years on astronomical matters and was warmly welcomed. Hajek gave Dee access to his imperial contacts. Dee and Kelley made their first scrying action in Prague on the 15th of August. Kelley had a terrible vision that Satan was going to destroy Dee's family unless they were brought to Prague, and Dee was also commanded to write to Emperor Rudolph, telling him that the angel of the Lord hath appeared unto thee, and rebuketh you for your sins. Dee made an obsequious letter of approach to the emperor, which made no reference to the rebuke by the angel, and managed to get the Spanish ambassador to the emperor to deliver it to him. Despite being told that Dee was a conjurer, a bankrupt alchemist, and very likely a spy, the Spanish ambassador really liked Dee. He even became godfather to Dee's son, who was born in Prague later on that year. The emperor received the message from Dee, and an audience was arranged. Dee met the emperor in his luxurious palace. The emperor was aware of Dee and his works, possessing several of Dee's books. After some preamble, Dee passed the angel's message directly to the emperor. The emperor believed Dee and was contrite and repented. A week later, Dee was told to report to Jakob Kurtz, one of the emperor's most trusted courtiers. Dee went to Kurtz's house and was received most courteously. Dee showed Kurtz his books on angelic actions and also a scrying crystal. Dee by then had filled 18 books with the language of Adam. After a few weeks, Kurtz came to visit Dee and Kelley. Kurtz asked to take the books to the emperor. Dee politely refused but promised to make copies. At Dee's next meeting with Kurtz, he was told that Emperor Rudolph's sins were a matter between Rudolph and his confessor. Dee's welcome in Prague was beginning to wear thin. There were rumours of Dee summoning spirits with the aid of certain magical characters. The Catholic ambassador to Bohemia pointed out that according to Catholic orthodoxy, good spirits are not enchanted and moved to appear, so Dee must be acting on the behalf of evil spirits. Also, Dee was married, thus lacking the essential purity that enabled the celibate Catholic priesthood to mediate between God and his flock. Dee was considered to be extremely learned and a threat to the Catholic mission to bring Prague into the Catholic fold. By the summer of 1585, Dee had managed to bring his family from Krakow to Prague. Soon after they had arrived, Kelley received a message from Medimi, one of the familiar spirits that he often communicated with, that Dee and Kelley must immediately go to Krakow. They performed actions in front of the Polish king there, and the angels rebuked the Polish king in a manner strikingly similar to that of Emperor Rudolf. Back in Krakow, Dee and Kelley began to attend Catholic masses. Dee believed that any form of religious observance was better than none and worried for the soul of Kelley. Dee and Kelley fell into the company of a dissident Catholic philosopher called Francesco Pucci. In Pucci's company, Dee and Kelley contacted the angels, and the angel Uriel gave an angelic assessment of the Reformation. The angel intimated that the Church was an important bridge between God and man. However, the Church did not have a monopoly on the truth, and that partakers of heavenly visions and celestial comforts, people like Dee and Kelley, had a role too. The angel also agreed that the Pope may be capable of evil, but wasn't the Antichrist, and that there were varying levels of truth in different Protestant orders. So Dee and Kelley, abetted by Pucci, were straying into heresy. Heresy, particularly at this time in history, was not to be strayed into. Dee and Kelley and Pucci returned to Prague in the spring of 1586. The new Catholic ambassador wanted a meeting with Dee. Dee stalled, scared that a trap was being laid for him. The ambassador was persistent, sending different emissaries until Pucci met the ambassador and got Dee and Kelley to agree to a meeting. The ambassador engaged in a civil but probing discussion with Dee, with the aim of getting Dee to talk about his recent conversations with angels about the Catholic Church. Dee told the ambassador that it was not for him to offer counsel or solutions. Dee noticed that there was a trap laid for him. As the meeting with the Catholic ambassador was wrapping up, Kelley unwisely waded in with a speech about how the Catholic Church needed reformation and that there was hypocrisy amongst some of the priesthood which needed to be addressed. The ambassador was unimpressed with Kelley and, by association, Dee. The Pope was warned that Dee had managed to infiltrate the imperial court, where he was spreading a new superstition. There was growing suspicion that Dee was a spy. In May 1586, Dee sent a message to Francis Walsingham, Queen Elizabeth's spymaster, saying this: "I'm forced to be brief. That which England suspected was also here." A fairly opaque statement, but slightly confirming the theory that he may have been an intelligencer. Anyway, at the end of May 1586, Dee was accused of necromancy and other prohibited arts. The emperor himself signed a decree banishing Dee and Kelley from Bohemia. They wandered for 3 months before a Bohemian alchemist called Prince Rosenberg secured permission for Dee and Kelley and their families to return to Bohemia and set them up in his castle. Rosenberg was having problems getting an heir, and his alchemical interests were driven by that as much as the usual promises of unlimited wealth. Dee and Kelley were on a quest for the ultimate prize of alchemy, the Philosopher's Stone. The Bohemian prince and Dee and Kelley engaged in a systematic attempt to explore alchemy under crystal guidance from angels. Alchemy was very much a hot technology at the time. Many governments in Europe were very, very interested in alchemy. At this point, Dee was offered a £2,000 annual salary by Ivan the Terrible's successor to be the philosopher of the Russian court. Perhaps he should have taken up the offer. At this point, as if by magic, Kelley appeared to have become a master alchemist. He produced a piece of philosopher's stone the size of a grain of sand, which transmuted an ounce of mercury into gold. Now, news of this travelled far and wide. The English court heard about this, and they were increasingly fascinated with the skills of Kelley and less fascinated with Dee. It appears that Dee kept making the mistake of telling the truth, while Kelley was proving to be very much a magician of truth. As Kelley's alchemical exploits continued, he became wealthier. In early 1587, he was given a gold necklace by their host, the Prince of Bohemia. Kelley gave this necklace to Dr. Dee's wife. Now, Dee was devoted to his wife, and Jane was devoted to him. Perhaps a little obsessed with astrology, Dee was fastidious in noting the dates and heaviness of her periods, and the dates and times that they had sex. Throughout all of this, Dee and Kelley continued to scry regularly. In April 1587, an angel appeared to Kelley and cursed those who loved their families over God. Be obedient, be full of humility and abandon pride. The angel told Kelley that his inability to father a child was because of his lack of humility and obedience. Kelley's scrying power was diminishing for the same reason. Then the angel told Kelley that the spiritual mission of transcribing the angelic holy books was going to pass from him to Dee's 7-year-old son Arthur. Poor Arthur had to do 3 sessions of scrying a day with very little success. It seems rather unfair to ask a child to do this. 2 weeks later, to the relief of Dee and his son, Kelley returned, ordained by the spirits to resume his role, and he took over the scrying from Dee's son. Kelley had a vision of a message written on the side of a distant globe. All sins committed in me are forgiven. He who goes mad on my account, let him be wise. He who commits adultery because of me, let him be blessed for eternity and receive the eternal prize. The next day, the familiar female spirit of Medimi appeared in the crystal, naked, to Kelley, and showeth her shame. Dee told her to go. In the name of God, why do you find fault with me? Asked Medimi. Because your doings and words are provocations to sin, replied Dee. Then Kelley had a vision of 4 heads on a pillar, the heads of Dee and Kelley and of their wives Jane and Joanna. The spirit Medimi produced a heavenly half-moon inscribed with "Nothing is unlawful which is lawful unto God." She then went into an orchard and grafted the branches of one tree onto another. Kelley thought long and hard, and then had an interpretation of the vision, one that he claimed to hate. Dee and Kelley were to swap wives, both in the sense of spiritual love and unity of mind, and also carnally. On the 21st of May, Dee wrote 2 words in his diary: pactum factum, pact fulfilled. On the 23rd of May, Kelley and Dee performed their last ever recorded spiritual action. A spiritual horseman appeared and asked, "Kelley, was thy brother's wife obedient and humble to thee?" "She was." The horseman then asked, "Dee, was thy brother's wife obedient unto thee?" "She was." The horseman then rode off into a field. The spirit Medimi reappeared and questioned Dee's honesty. Dee said that Joanna wasn't particularly enthusiastic about the state of affairs, but had been obedient. Then Kelley had a somewhat pornographic vision of a golden woman, simultaneously virgin and harlot, standing naked in the green field. And that was that. Understandably, after the wife swap, a rift formed between the Kelleys and the Dees. 40 weeks after the wife swap, Jane gave birth to another child, most likely Dee's. On the 20th of July, 1588, Dee's very old friend, Edward Dyer, godfather to Arthur Dee, arrived at the castle in Bohemia. He completely ignored Dee. He blanked him, cut him dead, and paid undivided attention to Kelley. You see, the state of England was impressed with Kelley's alchemical skills, and they wanted Kelley. Dee was an outcast. By the winter of 1588, Dee was no longer welcome in Bohemia, and Kelley had been made a baron with extensive estates, including a castle, 9 villages, and a house in Prague. The Emperor Rudolph sought Kelley's services. Kelley and Dee parted company and never met again. Dee and his family returned to Mortlake in December 1589. 6 years after leaving, they found it in ruins. The house had been ransacked. The furniture was gone. Most of his scientific instruments were gone, including the globes he had been given by his cartographer friend Mercator many years before. Dee estimated that 500 volumes had been stolen from his library. Many of the books were stolen by acquaintances or associates or pupils. One gentleman, a Nicholas Saunder, seemed to have come into possession of a suspiciously large number of Dr. Dee's books. Often Dee's signature was bleached out and replaced with Saunders. In the spring of 1590, Jane gave birth to a daughter, their 5th child. They named her Medimi. Dee was in debt. He was in his 60s. He was relying on donations from friends and patrons. He got money from the Archbishop of Canterbury, assorted alchemists and explorers, and Queen Elizabeth. Dee worked as a freelance astrologer to help make ends meet, performing horary astrology and riskily astrology to aid the recovery of stolen objects. From the age of 69 to the age of 79, he was a warden of a college in Manchester, far away from the court of Elizabeth, where he could have any undue influence. 5 of his 8 children had died, as had his wife Jane. When Elizabeth passed, any standing Dee had at all had evaporated. In 1604, he wrote to King James I, asking for an accusation of raising of devils and of conjuring to be withdrawn. King James refused. Dee died in London sometime between December 1608 and March 1609. He was 82. Dee may have inspired Shakespeare's Magus, Prospero. Dee's theories were incorporated into early modern scientific thought. Dee's communications with angels and work with the Enochian language influenced and informed occultists from Ashmole to Crowley and beyond. Dee's son Arthur was a physician to Tsar Michael of Russia for 14 years before becoming doctor to King Charles I. In the early 20th century, Rasputin stole Arthur Dee's Russian translations of his father's works. Who knows what he did with them?